All right. So now we are completely done with chapter 7. Okay. So now we're going to be diving into chapter 8.1, which is going to be perpetual inventory FIFO costing method. So as we mentioned before, right, there are two tracking methods, right? Periodic and perpetual, right? The costing methods are going to be the same. Whether it's the way that we track it is what's different, okay? Because in this case, right, FIFO, it still applies to grocery stores, right? And then, of course, last in, first out, LIFO, right, applies to cell phone stores. And, of course, weighted average/moving average applies to, regular resources like water bottles. And specific ID does exist. So in this case, the costing method does not change. It's the tracking method that differs between the two. So in this case, we're going to be relearning every single concept over again, but at least we know and have an idea of how the batches of inventory are going to be sold, right? So in this case, we're going to be diving right back into FIFO, which is first in, first out. So again, grocery stores is a great example because they sell perishable goods. Again, with packaging labels and expiration dates. So in this case, let's see how FIFO works under perpetual inventory. Now, as you can see here, you're gonna have familiar looking formulas. Okay. You are still obligated to figure out what the purchase price is, which is quantity times unit price. You are still having to figure out the total cost, which is going to be your purchase price plus freight, and of course your cost per item, which is your total cost divided by your quantity. These are standard formulas that you need to know so you can be able to calculate what each item costs you, right? Here's what's different. We are also going to be introducing a few other formulas here, right? Your goods available is no longer going to be your beginning plus your or beginning plus your net purchases. In this case, it's going to be your total cost of 1 with your total cost of 2 to get your total goods available, and your quantity of 1 plus quantity of 2. Now, what does that mean? Well, in this case, we're going to have a separate column for all the items of inventory that you have on hand. So this is what I mean by you're going to add up all your quantities, you're going to add up all your total costs, and that's going to be your goods available. And I'll show you what that is in a few minutes here when we actually dive into the actual exercise. Okay? Your cost of goods sold is actually going to be a completely separate column as well, where you're going to be calculating quantity times the cost per item, and that's going to give you your cost of goods sold, which we've experienced, right? And then, of course, ending inventory is going to be your total cost minus the cost of goods sold, okay, which in this case, you're always going to know how much ending inventory you will have at all times. So let's take a look at example here where you are going to be purchasing and selling. Okay, so assume that tax is 8.25%. Okay, so on June 1st, right, you made a purchase of 100 toys for $1.25 each, with the freight costing you $25. Okay, so in this case, right, we journalized that we purchased toys for $125 plus the freight of $25 to equal $150. So I got to plug it into an inventory worksheet. So now the inventory worksheet has changed, right? I'll explain what the formatting of the worksheet looks like, but in this case, right, you have 3 sections. The first 3 columns is going to be your cost of goods sold. The next 6 columns in the middle is going to be your purchases. And then the last 3 columns on the right side, which in this case I don't have space for, is going to be your inventory on hand. So that is exactly why all of our formulas have differ now. But in this case, when we're dealing with purchases, the purchases formulas will stay the same, where you need to figure out what your purchase price is, what your total cost is, and what your cost per item is. So in this case, right, I plug it into my journal, right? Did I sell something? No. Did I purchase something? Yes. So therefore, I plug in my 100 units at $1.25, which will give me a total purchase price of $125, plus $25 will give you my total cost of $150. And because I am using FIFO, I am now going to be calculating what that cost per item is going to be, which is going to be $1.50. Okay, so that's my first batch of inventory, right? And I'm going to use colors so we can keep track of where the items are going, okay? Because in this case, I don't have my inventory on hand section, okay? So then the next thing that happened was on June 3rd, you end up selling 55 toys for $5 each, okay? So remember, my selling price and the cost of per item is two different things, right? So in this case, I have to recognize what I sold first at my selling price of $5, and then now I need to figure out how much it's going to cost me to sell those 55 units. So this is where we go back to my inventory worksheet, because now I need to figure out what my cost of goods sold is. Well, in this case, I purchased my first batch of inventory, right? Right now, each unit is going to cost me $1.50 each. So if I sold 55 units, so now I'm in the first three columns now, which is my cost of goods sold. If I sold 55 units, right? What is my cost per item right now for my very first batch of inventory that I have right now? $1.50. So in this case, that's exactly where I'm going to take that number and I'm going to plug it in here. And now I need to solve. What is 55 times $1.50? It's going to give you $82.50. So then what's going to happen to my inventory? Well, you're going to subtract it out. You're going to subtract 55 out from the 100, and you're going to get 45 units left remaining, and you're also going to take out the total cost as well, right? You're going to take that 150 minus 82.50, which should give you a total of $67.50 each. Now, that is what's remaining left in my very first batch of inventory. Okay? So then let's see what happened next. On June 5th, you decided to make another purchase of 100 toys for $1.28 with a freight of 26. So again, I'm purchasing my inventory. So there you go. I have my first batch of inventory at 45. Now my second batch of inventory is going to be this second one, which is the 100 at $1.28. So again, 128 plus 26 will give me 140.54. Cost per item is $1.54, and I'm going to make it another color. So now I have two batches of inventory. Okay. So then the next scenario here is on June 10. We end up making another additional purchase of 100 toys at $1.30 with a freight of 27. So in this case, there you go. I don't need to do the math because right there, boom, right? Now I have three batches of inventory. My very first one that I purchased has a leftover remaining of 45 units. I just purchased my second batch of inventory, and I just made my third batch of inventory right here. So now the color coding is going to keep my numbers intact, in order, okay? So I have three batches of inventory: yellow, red, and green, okay? In that order. So then what happened on June 12th is you end up selling another 120 toys for $5 each. Okay. So in this case, right, let's take a look at my batch of inventory. I have three boxes right now, one that's already opened. Now in this case, can I cover all 120 units with the very first batch of inventory that I have?
No, you would have to use the whole 45.
Good. We're going to use the whole 45 and then open up our second box of inventory, right? So in this case, 45 from my very first batch is going to get rid of. And then my second batch I'm going to be dipping into is going to be 75 units, right? Because that will give you a total of 120 units, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to eliminate them one at a time. So in this case, my 45 is the first thing I'm going to take out because first in, first out. I have to get rid of my yellow batch first. So in this case, 45 at $1.50, which we already know is $67.50. So that's going to zero that one out. And then I'm going to take my 75, which right now is $1.54, calculate that, and I have to update that inventory. So now I have 25 units of my red batch left, right? 100 minus 75, 25 left. So then now let's calculate my grand totals because now I'm at the end of my accounting period. So right now, this, for selling all 120 units, is going to cost me a grand total of $183 even. Now, let's ask this question, right? When you're journalizing the cost of goods sold, right? Since we're using 2 batches of inventory, does it make sense to just do 2 separate journal transactions?
No.
No, because they're all going to end up being the 2 same exact accounts. It's going to be the same cost of goods sold, subtract out the inventory. So in this case, you're better off just adding these 2 units up together to get your grand total of how many units that you sold in grand total for the total cost. So in this case, for selling all 120 units, because I dipped into 2 batches of inventory, gave me a total cost of $183 even. And again, now that I reached the end of my accounting period, right, I sold a total of 175 units, and I have a total of 125 units left remaining, right? I have my green batch at 100 and my red batch at 25. Okay? All right? So then, here's the thing that you need to know. Because you already have your inventory items as an inventory, you absolutely do not need to do a conversion entry. What is there to convert? Right? You didn't recognize them as expenses. They already are at inventory. Your ending inventory is already in your inventory. And you are calculating your cost of goods sold as you're going on through the entire time, right? Your entire scenario, right? You're calculating the cost of goods sold as you go. So in this case, there is no need for a conversion entry to complete. Okay? All right. So, in that case, any questions from here?
No.
Okay. So in this case, right, what happens when you have beginning inventory? So in this case, of course, right, normally, right, when you are constantly working, you're going to be having ending inventory no matter what. Because once you start your business and you start purchasing, you're going to always have leftover remaining. So again, your ending becomes your beginning, right? We know that from the previous chapters, right? So in this case, right, we have on June 15 that you should have had a total of 125 toys on hand, which is true. So what are we going to do with that? Well, we're going to carry those 2 values into my inventory exactly how I purchased it, right? My red batch came first, my green batch came last. Because again, if these are perishable goods, you shouldn't be mixing and combining 2 of these batches, right? Think of it. If it's milk, your red batch is going to expire and you're combining it together with your green batch. So no. All right. So in this case, we're going to keep it separate and we're going to carry it onto our inventory worksheet like this. Okay. So now I have 25 of my red left and I have 100 of my green left. Okay. So in this case, right now it's June 18 and you end up selling 80 toys, okay, for $5 each. So again, we sold 90 toys. Okay, so in this case, same idea here. Does my first batch have enough to cover 90 units?
No, you have to use all of it.
We're going to end up using all of the red batch and then we're going to dip into the green batch because in this case, we don't have enough of anything. So therefore, my first batch of red batch here, okay, I'm going to take my cost per item, which is $1.54, which we already know is a remainder of $38.50, and we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. So now I don't have my red batch anymore. I only have my green batch, which I need to take out 65 units from, okay, which is $1.57. All right, and then calculate that. So that's $102.05. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract that out from my green. So now I have a remainder of green left with 35 units and only have one batch of inventory left, right? And now the grand total selling 90 units gave me a total of $140.55. Okay? So then, if I decided on June 21st to make another purchase of 100 toys, then you're just going to go ahead and continue on with the purchases section, right? I purchased another 100 units at $1.32, giving me 132 plus 26 will give me a grand total cost of 185 or 158. Divide that by 100 units, you're at $1.58, and once again, let's color code it. So now I have two batches of inventory. My green batch from my beginning and my new batch of inventory at 100 in blue. Okay. And of course, on June 25th, we end up purchasing another 100 units. So there you go. I threw it in. Now I have 3 batches of inventory remaining left. So I still have my green batch, which is my beginning, 2 purchases afterwards. Okay. So then now it tells me that on June 27, we end up selling 120 toys. So once again, I have to dip into multiple batches of inventory, right? Because my green batch is definitely not enough to cover all 120 units. So in this case, that's the first thing I'm going to recognize. I'm going to get rid of 35 from my green, and then I'm going to start dipping into my blue batch to get the remainder of 120 units, which is going to be 85. So in this case, once again, 35 at $1.57, which we already know, gave us a remainder of $54. So that's going to subtract that out, so that I have no longer my green batch. And I need to take 85 out of my blue batch, okay, which is $1.58, and that's going to give me 134. So that's going to be taken out. So now I have a remainder of 15 units in my blue batch. Okay? And I have a whole total of 120 units that I sold at a grand total of $189.25. Okay? So now I have my blue batch at 15 and my orange batch at 100. Okay? Last scenario here says I sold another additional 65 units on June 28th, giving me a remainder on June 30th, a total of 50 units. Okay? So once again, I need to sell 65 units. So in this case, my blue batch is going to be gone. Okay? And then I'm going to dip into my orange batch. Okay? So once I've done that, then now, what do you know? At the end of the accounting period, I have a remainder of my orange batch at 50 units, which is true. And I sold a grand total of 65 for that one batch. And then, of course, you're going to tally up your total. So I sold a grand total of 275 units with the remainder of 50 units left in my inventory. Okay? So any questions in this? This is the easiest way to keep track of your inventory, but it's the most tedious way because you're constantly calculating left to right, left to right, left to right. Any questions in regards to perpetual inventory?
No.
All right, so let's go ahead and dive right into the exercise. So this is what I was talking about, okay? When we are looking at my inventory worksheet, right? It's broken up into 3 sections, okay? So now I'm going to show you how to use the inventory on hand. So in this case, ignore the date, okay? If you break it down, there are 3 columns from left to right. You got the cost of goods sold, which is the 3 columns, right? That's your quantity, cost, and total cost, right? Then you have your purchases, which is your standard 6 columns, which is your quantity, unit, purchase, freight, total, and the cost per item. And then you have your inventory on hand. Now, what I'm going to do for this is the inventory on hand is after you made your purchase, you're going to transfer that amount into your inventory on hand so you know how much items you have on hand at all times. Okay? So that's what this column here on the right is. It is not to represent your beginning inventory, but this is how you keep track of your inventory. Right? This is how you calculate your goods available is this column right here on the right. Okay? The 3 columns on the right. So let's go ahead and dive right into an exercise so we can see how we can go ahead and utilize this. Now, I'm going to forewarn you. This is going to be very, very colorful because if I were to post the answers and all you see is nothing, right, except for a bunch of numbers that are taken out, you're not going to know how that got there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use colors and then I'm going to slowly take off the colors one at a time, okay? Or every exercise that we do, I'm going to slowly start taking off those colors because you don't need the colors. Because if you are putting in everything exactly how you see it, your inventory should be in order at all times. Okay? But because this is our first time looking at this worksheet, I want to use the colors so you can keep track of where they are going and so on and so forth. Okay? And how we plug them into our cost of goods sold. So, okay? So that's the first thing I'm going to forewarn you is we're going to be using lots of colors. Okay? So here you go. Here's your inventory exercise here for chapter 8.1, Perpetual Inventory FIFO. Okay, your inventory method is perpetual and it is FIFO. Okay? So first thing that we have here is on May 5th, we end up purchasing 1,000 units at $3 each on an account with the freight costing $100. Now in this case, check this out. No journal necessary. Why? We've been doing the journal for this. It's rinse and repeat. You're going to purchase the items. In this case, I have inventory. And you're going to credit it on an account. Rinse and repeat. We've already done that for the last 2 exercises, right? Okay. So in this case, I just only want you to try to get the idea for the inventory worksheet down first, okay? So in this case, May 5th, we purchased 1,000 units at $3 each on an account with the freight costing $100. So, first inventory worksheet, it is May 5th. Okay, double check that. May 5th, purchased 1,000 units at $3 each with a freight of $100. So, did we sell our items yet? No. So skip that first column and we're going to go ahead and dive into my purchases column. So in this case, we purchased 1,000 units. It's currently at $3 each with a freight of $100. So once again, we need to do our standard formulas that we've been knowing, right? Which is going to be, what's my purchase price? Quantity times unit.
So it's $3,000.
Good. Okay. Plus freight of $100 is going to give me a total cost of $3,100. Okay. So now I need to solve for my cost per item because I am working with FIFO. So in this case, what would be my cost per item? So 3,100 divided by 1,000.
Okay. $3.10.
$3.10. Okay? So now that I made my purchase, where did I purchase my items to? Straight into inventory. So this is where I'm going to start cell referencing, okay? Cell referencing means I'm grabbing numbers from one certain cell and copying it over into this. This is where I'm going to be applying a lot of my formulas, okay? So in this case, I have currently 1,000 units. My cost per item right now is $3.10. So therefore, my grand total cost is going to be $3,100, right? We know that. Now, in this case, let's keep track of it by color coding it. Now, no particular color in order. I'm just going to use the rainbow, okay? So in this case, right here down below, let's do red, okay? That's my starter up, okay? My first batch of inventory is red, okay? So let's see what's next, okay? So May 7, you end up selling 550 units at $10 each for cash, no sales tax. So again, we're not practicing journalizing because we already done that in the last two sections. So in this case, I sold 550 units. Okay? So in this case, it's May 7. Did I sell my unit? Did I sell my inventory?
You're going to take 550 out of the quantity.
Correct. Now in this case, what is currently my cost per item?
$3.10.
$3.10. Okay? So in this case, what is going to be my total cost? Now I'm going to be using my equal round formula. Okay, so if you remember from chapter 5, right? When we had to deal with unrounded numbers, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and practice that formula once again. So equal round, you're going to plug in your formula that you want to calculate, which is the quantity times the cost. And I want to finish my argument with a comma and then with 2 decimal places. So in this case, how much is my total cost of goods sold if I sold 550 units at $3.10?
$1,705.
$1,705. Okay? Now in this case, right, we know for a fact that this came from red. Okay, so I'm going to just identify that. Okay? Now I need to subtract out this because it came from my red batch, right? So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So right here, I'm going to do my calculation so you can see it straight on, okay? Here, I'm subtracting 550 units, and I'm going to subtract the total cost of that 1705, right? Because that is what I sold. I no longer have those units available. So in this case, let's do simple math. What is, if I started out with 1,000 units and I sold 550, what is the grand total I should have left over?
$450.
You should have 450 units left. Good. Okay. What about this part right here where if I started with $3,100 and I sold 1,705, how much should I have left?
$13.95.
$13.95. And this was all my red batch right here. Okay? So I'm I'm going to also highlight that so you know this is all my red batch. Okay. Now, because all of this, right, is red, right, I can go ahead and update my inventory because right now I only have 450 units left remaining. And because it's at $3.10, it should be equal to $13.95. So this is where my inventory on hand I'm updating because I no longer have 1,000 anymore. Because I sold 550, I should have 450 left remaining on my inventory on hand at all times. So that is how I use my inventory worksheet. I'm going to be constantly moving from left to right. If I sold something, it's going to affect the calculations, and it will result in updating my inventory. If I purchase something, I will skip my cost of goods sold, purchase it, and then I have to put it into my inventory on hand. Okay? So that's how we're going to use this worksheet. So that was the first example. Let's take a look at the second example. Okay? All right. So now I'm on May 10. Okay? May 10, we purchased 850 units at $3.25 each with a freight of 75. So 850, 325, 75. Okay. So let's find an empty spot here. It is May 10. We purchased 850 units at $3.25 each with a freight of 75. So what's my purchase price here?
Uh, 27, 27.62 and 50 cents.
$27.62.50. Good. Plus 75 will give me a total cost of
$28.37.50.
good. So therefore, what should be my cost per item here?
$3.34.
$3.34. Now let's double confirm that because again, that could be an unrounded number. So in this case, it's 3.33824. Okay? So that means we need to leave this unrounded and then we'll round on our cost of goods sold section. But in this case, I have a new inventory in my inventory, right? I'm going to color code that. Let's do yellow. So, right? So I'm going to transfer that amount into my inventory on hand because now I have purchased 850 units and it's currently at that 3.3824, right? So it's going to give me a total of $2,837.50. Okay? And I'm going to highlight this as yellow. Now, this is where I can calculate my total goods available, which I'm going to make it down here, okay? So I can go ahead and equal sum this, right? That's the formula, right, we've been using to tally up our totals here. So right now, I have a total of 1,300 units at a grand total cost of $4,232.50, okay? So that is your goods available. Now, this is what you can use to make sure, do you even have enough inventory to sell? And if you do, great. If not, then you need to buy more inventory, right? Straightforward. So in this case, this will keep track of how many goods we have available at all times. So right now, I made that second purchase of inventory for $850. Now I have a new grand total of $1,300. And every time you adjust your inventory on hand, this number will change. Okay, so there you go. I entered in a new inventory. So let's see what's next. Okay. Next is May 10. You end up selling 360 units. Okay, you sold 360 units. Okay, so again, it's
3,600.
It's May 12th for 360 units. Now let's take a look. Do I have enough to cover my 360 units in my first batch of inventory?
Yes.
Yes, you do. So therefore, what does it cost me for my red batch per item?
$3.30.
$3.10.
Cents.
So therefore, what's my calculation here going to be? What's my total cost of goods sold?
$11.16.
11.16. Good. And this is coming from my red batch of inventory, okay? So therefore, let's go ahead and calculate what that is, okay? So again, this is where I'm going to do my calculating total so you can be able to see visually where my inventory is going, okay? And then eventually we'll take them off. So in this case, I got red of 450. I just sold 360 units. So how much should I have left remaining?
$9.
You have 90. Good. Now, in this case, right now, my red batch at 450 is currently at $13.95. I just sold 11.16. How much should I have remaining? So $13.95. I just sold 11.16. How much should I have left remaining?
$279.
$279. And all of this is my red batch of inventory, remember, right? Because this is what happened. So therefore, let me go ahead and update my red batch of inventory because I just sold 360. I have 90 units left remaining in my red batch. So that means because I sold that 360, I now only have 940 units left remaining to sell. Okay? Because I have 90 in my red batch and I still have my yellow batch at 850. Okay? So let's see what's next. May 15. You sold another 600 units. Okay? So in this case, May 15, we sold another 600 units. Okay? Now, let's see. Right now, I have 940 units. So yes, I do have enough to cover all 600 units. Now let's break it down. I have 2 batches of inventory. Does my red batch cover my 600 units?
No, you're going to take the 90,
Unit.
full amount.
The full amount, and then whatever 600 minus 90 is, which is 510. So in this case, this is a calculation right here. Okay, so because you want to know if you got all 600 units or not. So 90, since we're going to take all 90, we already know 90 is going to cost me $279, right?
Right.
Well, I'm still going to have my calculation here, so then, I keep it consistent. So I can calculate my second portion at the bottom here. So right here, 279. Okay. And of course, you could go ahead and subtract that out, right? Subtract that 90, right, to get you to 0. You can do that. You don't have to. But at least you know where it's coming from, right? You just sold your 90 units at 279, so therefore you're at 0 here with your red batch of inventory. And guess what? We can go ahead and zero out this 90 right here. Okay, so now I have 850 units left. My yellow batch of inventory, I have only one left. Okay? And this one came from my red batch of inventory. So if this one's my yellow batch, I need to sell 510 units from my yellow batch of inventory. Currently, what is my yellow batch of inventory? What's my cost per item?
3.33824.
Good. So in this case, what's my total cost of goods sold for selling 510 items at 333,824?
$1,702.50.
Good. So in this case, right, for selling all 600 units, it's going to cost me $1981.50. Okay? So let's go ahead and update my yellow batch of inventory here by taking 850. We sold 510, so I should have 340 remaining. Okay? Now, if my yellow batch of inventory was $2,837.50, and I just sold 1702.50, how much should I have left remaining? 1135, right? In this case, so then now we know this is my yellow batch of inventory. So let's now update my inventory because I no longer have 850 anymore. I only have 340 left. Okay? 340 at 1135. Right? Which is true. Okay? So that means now I have only 340 left in my batch of inventory for my yellow batch of inventory. Now, why is it that I'm not just eliminating this entire red batch here? Because I use self-referencing, if I delete anything, so for instance, right, if I accidentally, or not accidentally, if I go ahead and purposely delete this $3.10, right, what would happen? All my numbers are now messed up. Okay, because that's the dangers of self-referencing is you end up messing up a lot of your formulas. So in this case, do not do that. Okay, if you're self-referencing, do not make any changes to the right side. Just only make changes to where you need to make changes. So in this case, because I self-reference, a lot of my work is being copied over. So in this case, I'm leaving my red batch so then I can at least know I did purchase an inventory item. Right? I did purchase this batch of inventory. So at least I have some track record, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So let's see what happened next. All right, May 20th. We end up purchasing 300 units at $3.50 with a freight of $20. So 300, 350, $20. Okay? 300, 350, $20. So it is, was it May 20th? Yes, May 20th. May 20th, right? We didn't sell, but we purchased 300 units for $350 with a freight of $20. So in this case, what is going to be my total purchase price?
1,050.
Okay, plus 20.
1,070.
Okay, and that's going to give me my cost per item to be
$3.57.
okay. So in this case, it's 356666666. Okay, ongoing. And because it's a new batch of inventory, I'm going to color code this green. Right, there you go. So therefore, since I made a purchase of inventory, I need to drop it into my inventory on hand because now I have a new batch of inventory for 300 units at 3.56666666. Okay, we'll give you your 1070. Okay, and once again, I'm going to call this my green batch. Okay, so technically, I purchased 3 batches of inventory, but I only have 2 available to sell. Okay, so let's see what's next. May 22nd, you end up selling 450 units. 450 units. So, May 22nd, you sold 450 units. Now let's take a look. My yellow batch, do I have enough to cover all 450 units?
Yes, you're going to use all of it.
Okay, so in this case, you're going to use all 340 units, right? And then I need to calculate how much I'm going to be selling from my green batch of inventory, okay? So in this case, my yellow batch, which we currently know is at 3.3824, right? Which we know is going to result in a grand total of $1,135, right?
Right.
Okay, so therefore, let's go ahead and do that quick math here. It's going to zero out my yellow batch of inventory. Okay, so again, this is yellow. Okay, this came from my yellow. Okay, and therefore I can zero out my yellow. Okay, so now I only have 1 batch remaining, which is my green, and my cost per item for my green batch is 3.566666, right? So in
Yeah.
this case, what is going to be my grand total cost of goods sold if I sold 110 units at $3 and 56666666.
$392.33.
$392.33, and this came from my green batch of inventory. Okay. So therefore, for selling all 450 units, I have a grand total of $1,527.33. So let's go ahead and update my green batch of inventory, okay? If I had 300 units and I just sold 110, how many units should I have left remaining?
$190.
190, okay? If I started out with 1070, and I just sold $392.33. I should have 67767. Okay. So once again, this is my green batch of inventory. Okay. So now I need to update my inventory because now I only have 190 left remaining, right? At 677.67, which is true. Okay. So then let's see what happened next. Okay. Then on May 25th, we end up purchasing an additional 650 units at $375 with the freight costing $50. $650, $375, and $50. $650, $375, and with the freight of $50. So in this case, I'm buying more inventory. So what is my purchase price here?
$24.37.50.
Okay, plus $50 of freight gives me a grand total of
$24.87.50.
And then I'll go ahead and calculate the cost per item for you. Cost per item should be $3.082692. And because it's a new batch of inventory, I'm going to call this blue. Right? So let's go ahead and update my inventory. So I got 650 units here. So 650 at a total cost per item to be that $3.82692, giving me a grand total of $2,487.50, which is true, right? Giving me a total goods available to be 840 units left, or now. Okay. So let's see what else happened. May 27, we end up selling 740 units, okay? Giving us, by the end of May 31st, a total of 100 units left remaining, right? So in this case, we sold 740 units, okay? On May 27, okay? 740 units. So, once again, let's take a look at my inventory. I only have 190 left remaining in my green batch. So, therefore, I need to dip into my blue batch. Okay. Okay. So, in this case, my green batch of 190, we're going to get rid of all of it, which is going to cost me $677.67, right? We know that because we're taking all of it. Okay. So in this case, all right, let's zero that out. Okay. So this is my green batch. And we zeroed out my green batch of inventory. Okay. So therefore, I only have my blue batch remaining at 650. And how many do I need to get rid of to get my grand total of 740? I need to get rid of 550 units. So in this case, what's my cost per item for my blue batch of inventory? What's my cost per item for my blue batch of inventory?
3.82692.
Good. So in this case, what's my grand total cost of goods sold if I'm selling 550 units at my 3.82692?
$2,104.81.
$2,104.81. Excellent. And this was from my blue batch of inventory. Okay. So selling a grand total of 740 units was a grand total of $2,782.48. So, last but not least, I need to update my blue batch of inventory. If I had 650 and sold 550, I should have 100 left, right? Straightforward.
Right.
This time I have $2,487.50, and I just sold $2,104.81. So that should give me a remainder of $382.69, right? If you take the 3.8269 times 100, you're going to get the same answer. Okay? And this all came from my blue batch of inventory. So therefore, I need to subtract and adjust my inventory to be 100 units at $382.69. And guess what? At the end of May, I should have a total of 100 units left remaining, and I do. Okay, I do have the ending remaining at 100 units. And that's how I use my perpetual inventory worksheet. Okay? So as you can see, like I said, lots and lots of colors, because what I'm doing here is I'm showing you how the inventory worksheet goes through, especially when we're using FIFO, right? Next time we come across this, for LIFO, it's definitely going to be different. And then weighted out, or then moving average is the easiest one, because you don't have to deal with what came first and what came last, so it's the easiest one to do. Okay? So any questions in regards to today? We're going to stop here and finish up the worksheet tomorrow.
Okay.